Meet Keith, loving dad, board game champ, bus driving pro.
I drive 65,000 miles in my bus each year. If people knew what I know, lives could be saved. Like how there are some things I simply can't see. On my route the other day, a car tried to sneak past me and ends up right in my blind spot. I turned slowly, so accident avoided. But no car should be in the blind spot for a 40,000-pound bus. It's our roads. It's our safety.
Visit www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. This is our trade deadline special. We are recording this on Monday evening at 6:12 Kaufman Standard Time. I am Jacob Milham, joined by my partner in crime, Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, I say partner in crime, but the Royals weren't the ones doing any robbing at the trade deadline, huh?
Well, I mean, they finally did Bubic for Duran straight up like we asked them to do,
You
right?
know what? That's true. That is true. One of those
And hey-
preseason hopes that worked.
Hey, they got Hoffman from the Phillies. He's their closer.
That is true. That is true. They got a Hoffman from the Phillies, yes, who
Wait,
pitches
what do
in
you
single
mean
innings.
a Hoffman?
Not that Hoffman. They got a different Hoffman, Jeremy. Boy.
But Duran, we got Duran. I know he sucks this year, but he might be good next year.
Jeremy, it wasn't that Duran either.
What? Wait.
It wasn't
What?
it wasn't from the Red Sox. It's from the Dodgers. They got a Duran from the Dodgers.
I did think that was weird, but I thought maybe it was a 3-team trade.
Nope.
No.
Well, if you're in the dark like Jeremy is here, we'll talk about all the trade deadline stuff, huh? Hey, I was over at royalsreview.com, and, thankfully we have like the grading polls up in the feed where folks can react to stuff, but I was perusing the trade deadline discussion thread, and it was one of those times where it just seems like the whole Royals fan base is all together. It's all on the same page. And you could go voice your 2 cents at royalsreview.com, but it seems like, Jeremy, everyone pretty much consensusly hated this trade deadline by the Kansas City Royals. I want to get your thoughts first on it before we get into the nuts and bolts.
I had talked myself into not hating the Lane Thomas trade. I saw what Taylor Ward brought back. I saw what the guy from the Angels, whose name, Joe Adell, I saw what he brought back, and I was like, okay, Lane Thomas, they actually did pretty good. And even though it really looks and feels like they dumped Bailey Falter as a salary dump, they got back pretty much the same deal that the other guys brought back, maybe a little bit better, honestly. So I'm not excited about either of the pitchers the Royals got for Lane Thomas, but I guess I was wrong, and teams didn't care about right-handed outfield bats that much. Certainly, I know the Phillies wanted a right-handed outfield bat and decided to go with Luis Arias instead. And
Yeah.
Jacob, we got to talk about, I'm sorry, I know we got to talk Royals deadline, but the Phillies traded for Luis Arias. Luis Arias only wants to play at second base. They knew that.
Yep.
So they said, fine, you can have second base. So we'll move Bryson Stott to third, a position he's never played. We'll move Alec Boehm to first, and we'll put Bryce Harper back in right field. What could possibly go wrong?
Everything could possibly go wrong.
But hey, we're not talking about weird things that are adding to our team. We're talking about sending guys away. So let's just run down this real quick, I guess. Lane Thomas and Bailey Falter to Atlanta for, I keep screwing up their names in my mind. I get them confused.
Do you need me to just run down the list real quick? I got it pulled up right here.
Please run me down the list instead of me trying to do it from my increasingly unreliable memory.
So Lane Thomas and Bailey Falter to the Atlanta Braves in exchange for Lucas Braun and Carter Holton. And also on trade deadline day, this trade was just officially announced by the Royals about 20 minutes after the deadline was finalized. They traded Kris Bubic to the Los Angeles Dodgers for Carlos Duran. And then they also traded Manuel Colon, a low A pitcher, if I remember correctly, to Philadelphia for Nolan Hoffman.
Just got promoted to low A.
Yeah, very, very young, very, very raw. Nolan Hoffman, who is DFA'd, mind you. So the Royals were positioned to be sellers. They make 3 moves overall. That's it.
John Schreiber, still in Kansas City. Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, still in Kansas City. Not that we expected them. I really should have led with them. Those two are not gone. They're still here. John Schreiber, still here for some reason. Matt Strom, still here for some reason. Starling Marte, still here for some reason. And spoiler alert, I got to sit in on a media roundtable with JJ Piccolo. I didn't ask any questions. I had a question I wanted to ask, but I was afraid if I asked it, it would come across as antagonistic, and I didn't want to make enemies today.
Well,
So
Jeremy,
we'll get to
you
that.
might have should have
Like-
asked that question.
Maybe I should have. I'm trying to not get all of Royals Review banned, okay?
Fair enough.
If it was
fair
just
enough.
my reputation on the line, maybe I'd go for it. But yeah. So I'll just tell you straight up that
Please.
what JJ Piccolo said, he said about Lugo and Wacha was that the Royals, that the interest in them that had been reported was wide. It was, yeah, I don't. He didn't say wildly, but it was over-reported, over-described. The words are escaping me. I'm too old to podcast, Jacob.
You got it,
I
man.
need to retire. Apparently, 40 years old is way
That's
too
it.
old in baseball player terms. It's apparently still too old in podcaster terms. Overstated. That's
There
the
you go.
word I'm looking for. He said that the Royals did not get a lot of interest in those two guys. But here's the kicker, Jacob. He said that if the Royals traded Wacha and Lugo, they would want a major league pitcher and a major league hitter in return as a start. And then he had acknowledged that, yeah, when you're trading with people at the trade deadline, contenders to try to fill out the roster, that's not what they want to do. But he said that as if like that's just the thing that prevents that trade from happening, and not as if that's the wrong way to approach trading Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo, because it is. You know that you can't do that, so don't try to do that. Don't look for that. What are you doing? About John Schreiber and Starling Marte, he said that, hold on, let me pull it up here. Nothing got too deep on discussions about those two guys, which implies to me that the Royals were taking calls on John Schreiber and Starling Marte and other players, but they weren't making calls. And
Which is frustrating.
that is the wrong way to go about two guys who will not be on your roster come the end of the World Series.
Yeah.
When you're on
Yeah.
your way to losing 100 games. You need to call other people and be like, John Schreiber, huh? You want John Schreiber? Anthony Senzatella got a pretty good return. I mean, they weren't ranked prospects or anything, but they're guys with some flashy numbers in the minor leagues. If you're calling, I don't remember who traded Senzatella or who
I can't
traded for
remember
him.
either.
I just know I looked at the prospects and I was like, oh, all right, I would do that for John Schreiber. Do you get that deal for John Schreiber if you make the call?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
There's only one way to find out.
But I really, and that was the question I wanted to ask, was the way you're saying these things makes it sound like you were taking calls but not making calls. Did you make any calls? And I was afraid that would be taken as antagonistic. So I don't have the answer for that question, and I apologize to our dear listeners that I don't have the answer to that question. But again, I didn't want to get all of Royals Review banned for my pointed questions.
Go ahead.
I'll just real quick, I'll add, I was in David Lesky's trade chat. He said that he talked to other scouts not associated with the Royals, and they said the offers for Wacha and Lugo were insultingly low. So not surprised that they didn't get traded. But if that's true, I guess that's fine. I just don't understand how John Schreiber, and if you don't get any offers for Starling Marte, you weren't going to get anything. You're not even going to get a lottery ticket for Starling Marte. You might get a scratch off.
Yeah, maybe.
And sure, scratch off is better than Starling Marte for the path the Royals are on, but it doesn't matter. John Schreiber should have got you something. And the fact that you got nothing for him is very upsetting. One last thing, and then I'll let you talk, Jacob, is that I lost it. I guess I'll just let you talk and maybe I'll remember it.
All right, sounds good. We'll circle back around to that, Jeremy. So what I was initially going to say in regards to the question is acknowledging the reality that Royals fans are sitting in right now, right? Because we only know about what did happen and what didn't happen, right? Like I know for a fact that John Schreiber did not get traded. That's like there's no nuance in that though.
And
I would have framed that question as, hey, Royals fans are going to see this trade deadline and think, what the heck did JJ and company do? Why didn't X, Y, or Z happen? Can you at least comfort fans by saying, like, were you active sellers? Were you trying to make deals happen by going out of the way rather than being passive sellers and waiting for contenders to come to you? Does that make sense?
yeah, I see. This is why you're better at this than I am.
Not really.
Yeah.
If you say
I
so.
have a really hard time of thinking up ways to ask things that don't make neurotypicals go, "What are you insinuating?"
I gotcha. I understand.
So I'm like, I know this about myself, and so with people I'm close with, I'm like, "Listen, this is how questions from me are gonna sound. That's not how I mean it. Please accept that I mean literally the words that I am saying."
Yeah.
But
Fair.
with people who I don't know, I can't give that preface. So
Understood. Understood. So here's where I'm at on Schreiber specifically because Max brought it up in the Royals review Slack that like, hey, Marte, way below average batter right now. He doesn't bring you a whole lot on the base paths or in the field right now, and I get it. Like he's at least an experienced veteran, right? But
and right-handed
again,
backs are supposed to be at a premium this deadline.
they're supposed to be. But again, if the Royals aren't actively going out there and they're calling saying, "Hey, we just saw that you lost this guy to the IL. Would you want to take on Starling Marte's salary? We can, or we can send you money back for this process. Just negotiate. Start somewhere. Look for the situations where that makes sense." Schreiber, on the other hand, I ain't gonna lie. If I was looking at his numbers as a contending team, I wouldn't be like, yeah, we got John Schreiber. Like I'm looking at his numbers and hey, the 3.76 ERA is great in 40 and 2/3 innings. Like on the surface, back of the baseball card, I was like, hey, you know what? That's a righty who can help out of the bullpen. But like he's giving up so many more home runs than I thought. He's walking nearly twice as many guys as he is striking out since the beginning of July. He has a 5.87 ERA since the beginning of July and a 5.97 FIP. And on the season, he has a 5.24 FIP. Like there's a big gap between the box score and what, hey, if you trade for John Schreiber, then you are trading for the decline. It seems like you are trading for the regression to what he is supposed to be doing. And I wouldn't want my contending squad to do that. But again, if they weren't going out there being active about it, then no one would have even considered it.
John Schreiber, you're not gonna get Luke Weaver return
No.
for John Schreiber. That much I think is obvious, but it's not like he has no value. He has a rubber arm. He can go out there 3 out of 4 days, no problem. He gets a lot of ground balls, and he's done this. He's pitched in leverage. He's pitched in the playoffs. He's been around the block. You don't want to, like I said, you don't want to add him as your closer, not even as your setup guy, but as a middle relief kind of leader in your bullpen, someone who can say you're in a 15, 16, 17 inning in the world a game in the World Series instead of having Will Klein pitch 4 innings. You can ask John Schreiber to give you 1 or 2 and you're not like panicking about it. You know what I'm saying? I if Kris Bubic can bring back, admittedly, I would call him a scratch off reliever.
Yeah.
Then John Schreiber, and you don't even know if Kris Bubic is going to pitch again this year.
Mm-hmm.
Then John Schreiber should get you an actual lottery ticket.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So hey, I am going to ask this. So the two we can all agree the two major impactful trades, Lane Thomas to Atlanta and Kris Bubic to Los Angeles. Which one
The
of
other one
those
was
two?
a low A minor leaguer for a DFA'd guy. So it's not a real deadline trade.
Yeah. What I was going to ask is, which one of those two do you think is the better trade? Just grading on the curve here.
I mean, considering Bubic may not pitch again this year, getting a guy who JJ Piccolo said might immediately join the Royals bullpen.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, he said Hoffman is going down to AAA. I had assumed that Braun would join the rotation in the place of Avila, but it sounds like he's probably not going to do that. I guess it'll be Mason Black. Good luck.
Jeez.
But he said that they were going to have conversations about whether Duran might immediately join the Royals bullpen, or if they might send him to Omaha first. And so getting a guy that you think can help your bullpen now and he's got stuff. That's my problem with the Lane Thomas trade is, where's the stuff? Well, you've got Seth Lugo light. You've got Timu Seth Lugo over here for Lane Thomas. Not only is that not a top 100 prospect, I mean, he's not even a top 10 prospect in Atlanta's system.
Yeah.
You go by MLBs, they say he's 8th, but everybody else says he's 18th or worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't trust MLB's ranking systems. I think they overvalue nearness to the big leagues.
They do. They do.
And so he's near to the big leagues.
Yes.
So, but that's the Kris Bubic trade. I actually feel like, hey, you got really good value for Kris Bubic. And it's funny because Baseball Trade Values sees it the exact opposite. It's like, you should have got more for Kris Bubic, and you got so much more for Lane Thomas. But again, Baseball Trade Values is a really good tool. You can't take it as gospel. You just look at it and you go, does that pass the sniff test? And like, you can't go into there and be like, well, let's find something to make it happen. You got to go in there and go, I think this would work. Does it pass the sniff test here? And if it's close enough, then you go, yeah, this probably is a thing. It's a tool that is often misused, and that's why it gets a bad rap. If you use it correctly, it's very good.
Well, and using it correctly is applying your own sense of value to context, right? Because like that is taking out of context. Hey, Kris Bubic might not pitch again this year. Kris Bubic just started a throwing program, isn't even like throwing from a mound, isn't on a rehab assignment, nothing like that. Dealing with 2 separate injuries to his throwing arm, in his shoulder and in his elbow this year. Like that's a lot of the context where I think you put it best in the Royals Review Slack. You compared it to the Danny Duffy trade from years ago. Like,
only they got a much better return.
Yeah, that they did, especially again in context. We know the Royals need relief arms both right now and in 2027, and Duran he's a decent relief prospect. The slider is unquestionably great. It performs great in AAA. The surrounding arsenal is lackluster. The fastball has great velocity, but it does not have great movement. The command and control needs a lot of work. I like the changeup a lot, but that only works against lefties. So I liked Locked On Royals, Jack Johnson, the host over there. He had a good comparison pointing out the similarities between Steven Cruz and Carlos Duran. Both very, very similar skill sets, physical builds as well at this point in their career. So I like that comp.
Yeah, I would also say of Duran that he's not a guy I would be excited about in the offseason. If the Royals added him during the offseason, I'm going to be like, we've solved the bullpen. But as a guy that you got for, again, a guy who may not pitch again this year, may never pitch again for the Royals in a meaningful game, even if he had stuck around, he's got some stuff that makes you go, well, maybe. And I am far more excited to watch, I keep wanting to say Yohan Duran, which is also not the right Duran. If you watch Carlos Duran, I would much rather watch Carlos Duran this year than Aaron Bummer again, or Matt Strahm, or Lucas Erceg. The only guys I would rather see pitching right now for the Royals, honestly, are Steven Cruz and Beck Way. And I think he's probably in a tie with Nate Pearson he's got some stuff. If he could figure it out, it would be really exciting. Let's see if he could figure it out, because all these other guys, they don't got it figured out right now.
Right. let's focus on, so we talked about Duran a little bit. Let's focus on the other acquisition who should be joining the big league roster sooner rather than later, in Lucas Braun from the Atlanta Braves. And I think that I'm describing him as Seth Lugo light is a good way of putting it. Definitely a death by 1,000 cuts guy. Going over to TJ stats, we love Thomas's work. Only one average grading pitch, but throws a lot of them, has very, very good control, gets a lot of soft contact there at AAA. It is concerning to have that sort of profile and trying to make the jump to the major leagues, because those guys are going to be the most likely to punish your mistake pitches if you have to live in the zone and not get a whole lot of chase. He does get a lot of chase on his cutter, I will say. The pitch that he throws the most, he gets almost a 46% chase rate on a pitch that he throws 20% of the time. That is pretty solid. I think that there's a good comp here to, like, my expectations for Braun right now are kind of similar to what I had for Noah Cameron before he made his debut. But at least Noah had a couple of pitches that I could say, yeah, those are definitely MLB ready, even if they aren't going to be MLB elite. Other than the
Yeah.
cutter, I got nothing on Braun right now.
Yeah, that's the thing is this is why I call him Timu Seth Lugo. It's because he throws a lot of pitches and he gets away with the deception the same way Lugo does. But Lugo actually has, if you go by TJ Stuff Plus, he's got 4 above average pitches: his curve, his sweeper, his slider, and his slurve.
There you go.
And then if you go by scouting grades, he's got at least 2 in his curveball and his slow curve. The slow curve is a 76 on the 20 to 80 scouting scale.
Jesus. Okay.
So, he's got high quality pitches that Braun does not have. And Cameron, I need to pull up his numbers real quick. I believe he's got at least one really above average pitch. Yeah, that he's got his changeup and his slider are both above average, and his changeup grades really well. And yeah, so he gets a lot of chase with the cutter and with the slider on the season. He gets whiffs with the changeup and the curveball. He's and again, he's struggling. By the way, Noah Cameron and Seth Lugo have struggled all year. Now, Noah Cameron's had a couple really good starts his last 2 times out. I hope he's figured it out. But we're looking at these guys and going, well, okay, they're better than this guy, at least in terms of pitches, but they're also struggling. So then you're going to tell me, yeah, this guy, he's going to help the rotation next year. Is he?
Yeah, I don't know. But here's the thing. We have proven once again that you can never have too much pitching, especially who can go multiple innings, because the Royals have been, despite all of our best preseason thoughts, the Royals have once again been faced with the fact that they can't get enough innings. That's what they need right now. They don't have that in AAA. Ben Cooter has been on the shelf. Stephen Kolek, Ryan Bergert aren't going to be available to start next year. Cole Reagans isn't either. Like, you are already going into the offseason with a patchwork rotation as it is. And if you can at least get a option heading into spring training, I'm fine with that. I really am, especially for 2 months of Lane Thomas. The other piece in that is the only lefty pitcher that the Royals got out of this in Holton. Definitely, like, low expectations for the guy. He has some good traits, but I mean, you're looking at this with the ERA north of 5, with less than 1 strikeout per inning when you're 23 in low A.
In A ball.
Yeah, it's not a great set of tools here. This is definitely one of those guys that the Royals probably saw, like, hey, a lot of his issues are mechanical. Like, you could see it just with the naked eye. So maybe they think that they could address that in Arizona or something.
Maybe. And I know he was a 2nd-round draft pick and he had Tommy John surgery, and that's why he's so old and such a low level. But the reason that the age thing is a thing that we look at is because when you're older than guys in the minor leagues, you're just better. Even if you missed a year, you're bigger and stronger, you're more physically mature. And so if he was a 23-year-old in A-ball who was just knocking guys down, then I'd say, all right, maybe, he's too old for the level, but he did have the Tommy John. Maybe there's something there, but he's too old for the level and he's not even having success.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not enough. The Tommy John surgery that he had is not enough to say, well, that's fine. He'll figure it out. Maybe they can
Yep.
fix the mechanics. Maybe he can talk to Seth Lugo, or maybe Braun can talk to Seth Lugo and be like, hey, Seth, how are you so good doing the thing that I'm trying to do? And maybe he'll unlock something and become good. These things are possible. And I know I've argued, oh, the Royals are good at finding pitchers and making them work, especially starting pitching. And Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha have been better with the Royals than they were with teams before them. But and we praise the Bergert and Kolek trade for Fermin. But part of that was Fermin was perceived to have no trade value and brought back 2 major league starting pitchers. They had already started in the big leagues. They'd had some success, and they had stuff. They had pitches you could look at and go, that's good. Do more. You can, there's something to try and refine here. I don't know what you refine with these 2 guys, other than the mechanics for the low minors guy. I'm sorry, my names are flying out of my head.
Carter Holton.
What's the first name?
Carter
Holton.
Yep. So we'll see what happens there. One thing that I did want to point out, I talked about this on social media a little bit. I don't know if it's a coincidence or if it is a trend. We didn't really get a big enough, I would call, sample size to prove it on this trade deadline. But all the righties that the Royals acquired had one thing in common. They had notably below average arm slots. And I would argue that the lefty Holton, well, one way that you clear up his mechanics is you lessen his hip tilt, and you probably bring that slot down a little bit. See what happens there. I bring that up because when all of them have that points to me like, hey, this is something the Royals might be looking for, especially as we see that lower arm slot. Hey, that's why John Schreiber can go out there and pitch in 70 plus innings or 70 plus outings in a season, because you're more durable. That's less stress on your elbow, and injuries are less devastating is the way that I would put it when you have that lower arm slot, and you still get the similar velocity and similar movement on your pitching as well.
There was a really good episode of Effectively Wild where Ben Lindbergh interviewed a biomechanics expert. I don't know if you listened to that episode, Jacob.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So the takeaway for me was the models show the lower your arm slot, the better your arm health. Now, the problem is that you go too low and you start to lose velocity. But yeah, so that especially with all the elbow injuries they've suffered this year, we know 2 for sure, possibly 4 or more, 4 or 5 even.
Yeah.
So maybe they're like, we got to add some durability guys to go in with these Tommy John guys.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So, Jeremy, here's where I'm at with this deadline though, because I feel like my tone has been pretty even keeled. My approach has been pretty even keeled. I do think that this trade deadline has been a failure on the Royals' part. When you look at the results, I'm not talking about the process right now. I'm talking about the results. The results are a failure on the franchise.
That's the thing, is that whether the Royals called people about John Schreiber or not, the fact that he's still in the organization when he clearly had some value is unacceptable. It's simply unacceptable. I remember a couple of years ago when we thought they hadn't traded Scott Barlow, and then it turns out they had. And now the guy they got from Scott Barlow, I'm not even sure if he's in the organization anymore.
Henry Williams, yes, he is.
Hasn't turned into anything.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But it was a lottery ticket, and you lose the lottery a lot. The Royals chose to not even get a free lottery ticket for John Schreiber. They chose to just throw him in the trash can, basically. It's unacceptable. And I remembered that last point I wanted to throw at you earlier, and I'll give it to you now and see how even keeled you stay. JJ Piccolo was asked during the roundtable conversation with the media, whatever you want to call it, why he believes the Royals will compete next year. And his answer was that he believes it for the same reason he believed they'd compete this year, which, JJ, have you looked at the standings?
Yeah.
You believed you'd compete this year. You're not competing this year.
No.
So if
You're
it's the exact same reasons for next year, well, that don't make no sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
You had a theory. I bought into your theory. I've predicted the Royals would win 90 games this year. I look like an idiot. You know what I'm not going to do next year, Jacob? Assuming the Royals don't make some crazy offseason moves, predict them to win 90 wins again. I'm not going to do that because I had a theory. I saw the results of the theory. We did a scientific experiment. The results were no, that theory is wrong. So you can't keep believing that theory. That's dumb.
It is. It is very, very dumb. This is
That's not analytics. That's anti-analytics.
so here's the I like that you brought up analytics because I think that okay, you could look at it on paper, you could look at the models and say, yeah, like X, Y, and Z, we should have had this happen with these people. But here's the reality of this. Injuries don't account for being 20 games below 500. That's not reality. And I don't know what like I'm looking at the team's overall stats right now. And because I'm like, oh, okay, the lineup's been a lot better. The lineup has been better scoring runs. But then like I sorted it by WRC plus. And it's John Rave, Tyler Tolbert, Luke Maley, Elias Diaz, Nick Lofton, Lane Thomas. Like those are the guys who are topping in WRC plus for the Royals right now. I bring up those guys because a lot of those guys got opportunities because there wasn't anyone else in the organization right now.
Yep.
I thought
And
that
some of them are already
after
gone.
yes, and some of those guys are already gone. I thought that after 2025, we all agreed that a lesson learned was you can never have too much depth across the board. Even I'll say it. Even if it's a quad A outfielder, that's at least depth that I know is depth and will do some things good, some things really bad, and be willing to go back to AAA when it's all said and done. I
John
thought
Rave.
that yeah. Hello, John Rave. Hello, the future outcome for likely Gavin Cross later on this year. I say all that because if there was an after action report on the 2025 season, that was one of the things that I took away from it. I feel like the fan base took away from that. You would hope that the organizational leadership would take that away as well. But they showed marginal urgency in the offseason. I was like, okay, all right, well,
They made
we're coming back
free
healthy.
agent signing. I'm not even sure that qualifies as marginal
Yeah,
urgency. They made one free agent signing for a fourth outfielder,
fair enough.
they traded
got
for
me there.
another fourth outfielder.
Yeah, you got me on that one. I'm probably thinking about it in rose-colored glasses. I was thinking more so of like the what's it called, the Matt Strom trade at the time was like
no, I keep coming back to this, Jacob, where I thought this team was gonna win 90, and I'm like, what the heck happened? Because I said if Jack Caglione and Carter Jensen are good, it's gonna be a good team. Jack Caglione and Carter Jensen are, they're not superstars, but they're good. They're above average hitters.
Yep.
They got some defensive struggles. Life goes on. I don't put that much weight on defense. The bullpen has been an unmitigated disaster, and I think in retrospect, I had too much faith in the bullpen. I believed that when you looked at the guy they got from the Brewers, Mears, when you looked at Mears and Lang and Lynch and Cruz and Black
and Estevez and Urseg, like
not them yet. I'll get to them. But when you looked at those guys, I'm like, you've got a middle of a bullpen somewhere in that group. But then, like where things really fell apart, like you were saying, was Estevez, Urseg, and Strom. I thought, well, at least two of these guys. I worried about Urseg and I worried about Estevez. I did not worry for a second about Matt Strom,
none either. But
none of them were good. And then none of the group behind them, Schreiber into that other group, none of the group behind them were good enough to be middle relievers either. And suddenly Alex Lang is closing games and people are going, why isn't Daniel Lynch, who gives up more hits than innings pitched, closing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the reality of where we're at. But see, here's the thing, as fans, and I want to, Jeremy and I we're two folks sitting here talking about baseball, right? And some of Jeremy's questions, which have been very valid questions, I've been sitting over here shrugging my shoulders and throwing my hands up, because it's just like I don't know, where the team fell apart. I can't identify it right now, but I want to say that it's fair for fans to hold the front office accountable for not being like, y'all are supposed to be the ones to know what happens.
Yeah, I have to say this, Jacob, and you can slam me if you want.
Boy,
I feel like the lineup has been good enough outside of the first month. I feel like they could have made adjustments sooner. Salvador Perez, after he stopped catching every day, has been hitting well. He's caught like 4 times in the last month. He's hit fine. Not great, but fine. The outfielders are 10th in WRC plus in baseball, I believe. 10th among outfielders, but a lot of that's Lane Thomas, who's now gone. But they've done a really good job of filling in behind the injured starters, where Randy Dobnak is player of the month in July, or pitcher of the month. Tyler Tolbert was player of the month. And it's so funny because the reaction I've seen among media people has been universally like, wow, that hurts. Like, I don't want to say anything bad because those guys had good months. Like, they did deserve that. This is not, I don't want to be like, this is damning with faint praise, because they were actually, Tyler Tolbert and Randy Dobnak were really good. But the point that they were playing enough to be that good for a whole month is really, I didn't like that. But so the lineup's been fine. They filled in behind the rotation way better than you could have imagined that they would, considering how many injuries they suffered. The bullpen has been the problem. And David Lesky said in the chat that he believes that the bullpen has cost the Royals at least 12 games this year. If you add 12 wins to the Royals, they look a lot better. So when JJ Piccolo says that he thinks the team can compete next year for the same reason he thought they could compete this year, and we say, man, there was no way for us to see that the bullpen would be this bad, then you can see kind of the fuzzy outline of how that makes sense if you think you can fix the bullpen next year somehow. Because if you think Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo aren't going to fall apart, if you think Noah Cameron is going to get somewhere between this year and last year, and you think you can find 2 more starting pitchers and another 4th outfielder and a bullpen, that's a lot to find. But if you think you could find all that, then you can see how they might think they could compete next year. So there's, I guess, your potential really fuzzy silver lining on all these rain clouds is, I mean, nobody thought nobody. It's not that the Royals thought this bullpen couldn't be this bad. It's that literally no one anywhere thought the bullpen could be this bad, and it's been so bad that it has tanked the Royal season. The injuries didn't tank the Royal season, but the bullpen did, in a way that the offense and the starting pitching, as much as they've struggled at times, didn't, I believe.
Across the entire season, the Kansas City Royals relievers have the second worst win probability added. Excuse me, I had to get that out of my mouth a little bit. Only trailing the Los Angeles Angels, and their 68 meltdown performances are tied for 6th with the Detroit Tigers. They trailed the Cleveland Guardians actually by only 2 with 70. The league's worst is the Washington Nationals with 81. So moving on from the bullpen right now, Jeremy, because I genuinely don't think you're wrong. I think that we might be able to look back on it and attribute a different level to the bullpen. Right now, I think it's just a byproduct of a bad season.
The counter argument to the bullpen thing is you need 10 relievers. You need to find 10 relievers somewhere. You need to is this the real Steven Cruz? How do you keep this Steven Cruz as opposed to the Steven Cruz you got the first time you called him up this year?
Correct.
Is Beckway a competent middle reliever or not? Is Daniel Lynch a competent middle reliever or not? You can't, if you go into next season and you go, well, Daniel Lynch is the 8th inning guy, you're not competing.
No. Even if you retained everyone who is currently under team control on the 40-man roster for the bullpen, you at least have to add 5 other relievers. 5 other relievers who
at
you can
least.
point at. I say at the very least.
That's why I said 10, because you need AAA depth that you can swap, because that's how teams do things. Like, we're not just talking about filling out the 8 guys in the bullpen. We're talking about when one of those guys gets hurt, or when you need to call someone up because someone's tired because you had to burn the bullpen real hard. You know, you don't just need 8 relievers in a major league bullpen. You need more like 15 to 20. So when we did our 15-man bullpen depth chart earlier this year, Jacob, that was wrong of us. Or I came up with that. It was wrong of me to look at that 15-man depth chart and be like, this is fine. There's plenty of relievers here. Because you need more than, you don't need just 5 relievers. You need 10, 15.
Yeah. And I will also point this out, because I've definitely gone into spring training thinking about the mindset of, hey, there's guys in AAA who have to be waiting in the wings. There's guys who have to be like at least pushing for that step up, right? And I'm looking down this list of, if this list was about 5 years ago, I'd probably feel a lot better about it. Like, oh, we got Scott Barlow, we got Matt Moore, we got Scott Alexander, we got Dan Altavilla, we got Anthony. Is it Goose or Goes? I don't even freaking know anymore. Goes. Thank you.
The former outfielder. I thought he retired.
Nope, he's still listed on the roster.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So here's the
Jose Cuas is down there.
Yeah,
Eli Morgan.
like-
You'd feel real good about them a few years ago.
Yeah, it's where we're at right now is the Royals unfortunately have to hit completely reset on the bullpen almost, and it's a scary spot to be at. But hold on, I want to keep. Do you have anything quick to say on the bullpen? Okay, so
I wanted to expand from what that means for next season, whether they're going to compete again.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that, because this whole trade deadline approach that was reported is like, okay, we're not going to move on from Walker, we're not going to move on from Lugo, our controllable talent, because we believe that we can compete in 2027. However, I look at this trade deadline and I don't see how this helps you compete in 2027, much less giving you viable pieces to evaluate in 2026. And all the same questions still remain for next year and years beyond.
They got 2 more darts to throw at the reliever board to see if they stick. But to go back to what I was saying is, you could see where they could compete if they have a whole brand new bullpen next year. But that's a whole brand new bullpen. You're going to get a whole brand new bullpen in a single offseason? Well, probably not spending very much. And I know Oleski would point out, and I've pointed out, that the Royals are going to have are currently on the hook for a lot less money next season than they were this season, like in the realm of $80 million less. But are they going to spend all of that $80 million? And even if they wanted to spend all of that $80 million, does that buy you an entire bullpen, 2 starting pitchers at least, probably more, because that just gets you to 5. And you're not going to have Avila or Bergert or Kolek or Reagans until July at the earliest. And again, they need to replace Lane Thomas. They probably need to improve on Lane Thomas, because Salvador Perez takes another step back. What if Michael Massey takes a step back, or Nick Lofton? You've got to add at least 1 bat, at least 2 starting pitchers, and at least, I would say, 10 relievers in a single offseason. That's not really possible.
No,
I don't know.
And I'm looking at the 2027 numbers, and the Royals actually they rank above 15th. They rank 14th in current 2027 commitments at $91 million. So as, let's say, everyone leaves in free agency and we just get the folks that come back, well, the Royals are already on the hook for $90 million. That, I mean, you could go down the line and there are teams with $9 million in commitments for next year, and they're still in a much better spot than the Royals are. Like that's just the reality of it. I'm not talking about the Rays, the Brewers. Like I'm talking about, I think the Washington Nationals right now are in a better spot than the Kansas City Royals. St. Louis Cardinals certainly are, and it just the list goes on. And I look at where have they really failed right now to capitalize financially, and it's pre-arbitration. That's what it is more of that lack of drafting and developing from years ago is still impacting things, but you I'm sorry. Right now, we can't be focusing on what got Dayton Moore fired because unfortunately, JJ Piccolo is making the same mistakes right now that his predecessor made.
Yeah, you could say that there's nobody in AAA because of Dayton Moore, but also you look around and you're like, why are David Shields, Blake Mitchell, and Churios still in high A? Why aren't they at least in double A? Why are we not promoting guys? If
Well,
we
they,
don't promote them, we're never going to get anyone to the big leagues. And AAA is a huge problem for the Royals. It is only guys who are past their prime. There are no prospects in AAA except for, I guess, Gavin Cross. Brett Squires is not a real prospect. I'd be fine with calling him up and seeing what he could do, but I don't. Gavin Cross is not even a real prospect anymore.
Not really.
You don't have a single prospect at AAA. You have 4A org depth guys, and you have 38-year-old pitchers who came out of retirement because you're like, well, somebody's got to pitch.
Yep. That is exactly it. That is exactly it. And the Royals just have like right now they have a gluttony of starting pitching prospects in Double A who just cannot get over the hump, whether it be underperformance, whether it be injuries, things like that. Like the list just goes on and on and on down there. So we've been talking for a while, Jeremy, and we've gotten a pretty far ways away from the trade deadline. But
I
go
think
ahead.
this all ties back.
It does. It does. And like that's where I'm at right now because we wouldn't be talking about this stuff right now if it felt like the Royals were truly looking to the future at this trade deadline. This approach, the results, excuse me. Not the approach because we don't know the approach. But the results say the Royals are more scared to lose 97 games than they are willing to actually get back in the postseason.
And they're going to lose 97 games anyway, it looks like.
Yeah.
It's this the approach of we think we can compete next year and offering nothing to support that, I think is where this trade deadline really irks me. And keeping rentals like John Schreiber and Starling Marte, I sat here and I went, well, maybe don't trade Matt Strahm, but you're going to cut him. If Nolan Hoffman is going straight to Omaha, you're probably not cutting Strahm. You might be cutting Aaron Bummer to get Duran on the roster, but then that means you're not demoting Lucas Erceg. He looks, man, you saw the screenshots from the Rocky series. He does not look good. And I maybe this is uncharitable of me. I worry extra about his mental state because I know he's got alcoholism in his past and you never are cured of that. That's something you're dealing with for the rest of your life. And I worry about the guy. And I would like to see him find some success, find some ability to feel good about himself. And I think he could do that in Omaha. Even, I think the stuff he's got plays in Omaha. And you'd see him put up ridiculous numbers and you'd be like, well, call him back up. And it's like, he's still not good in the big leagues, maybe. But to continue pitching Lucas Erceg in the major leagues this season, when you have another choice, you can demote him. He has options. Feels cruel to me. And I understand that demoting him can also be a mental hit, but it can't be worse than this, can it?
It might be, man. It might be.
I know that I would rather turn the difficulty down when I'm playing MLB The Show than keep striking out every time. So that's my approach for Lucas Erceg. Maybe that's just me though. I don't know.
No, that makes sense.
But the Royals still don't seem interested, and they're, instead of giving somebody like Ryan Ramsey, who again is probably 4A org depth, a chance, they're calling up Aaron Bummer. They're putting Anthony Goes in the bullpen in Omaha. I mean, this is a team that seems like it thinks depth is something for another team. I don't understand it. This is not the Dodgers outspend the Royals. This is, what are you doing?
Yeah. And like that's what, so, of course the Tarek Skubal trade
Which
was all the talk of baseball. Go ahead.
any other team could have outbid the Dodgers. Zaire
Yes.
Hope's not that impressive if you look at his numbers. And he was the
Yep.
headliner in that deal. Any other team could have outbid the Dodgers if they wanted to. They chose not to.
Right.
That's not the Dodgers ruining baseball. That's every other team going, I'd rather keep my controllable cheap prospects than go for the win, than go for the throat. And the Dodgers saying, we'd rather go for the throat.
Yeah. Thank you, Houston Astros. I still blame that cheating team on starting this whole process that has gotten us here.
I don't think it's a tanking to win thing. I think it's a maximizing profits thing.
No, I'm talking about the Houston Astros beating the Los Angeles Dodgers back in 2017, and the Dodgers turning around and saying, "You know what? Screw this whole homegrown thing. We're going to go spend some money." So, but I
There's
brought that.
also, the MLB owners letting the Dodgers keep all their local TV revenue instead of putting it into the pot. But it's mostly every other MLB team other than the Dodgers and the Mets saying we want to maximize profits more than we want to win.
Right. And I brought up the Scooble move because I would love to sit here and talk about it some more. I would love to examine it some more. But the reality is the Royals didn't do anything to put them close to the stratosphere that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. That is a competent contending team. The Royals did not look like that at the trade deadline. This was a failure of a trade deadline, plain and simple, and it's beyond frustrating. I firmly believe that everyone is going to have their good and bad reactions. All the good reactions are going to be based off of what actually happened and accepting it, because that's the only positive thing to do at this point.
I saw multiple takes on social media that the Royals once again did the bare minimum. I would argue that in keeping John Schreiber and Starling Marte, they didn't even do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Trading Scott Barlow 3 years ago was doing the bare minimum. Failing to do that again is failing to meet the threshold. This is not a C. This is not even a D trade deadline. This is an F. This is a 100% failure to accomplish anything worthwhile.
Exactly. Good luck.
The individual deals they made might be fine, but the process behind them and the lack of trades is an absolute 100% failure.
That it is. And if you want to go voice your opinions, you can go do that at royalsreview.com. You could drop your opinions in the feed, write out some eloquent piece about how the Royals failed at the trade deadline, or you can just go over to the discussion thread and vent your feelings if you would like. Kansas City Royals do still have baseball games to play, but I will say I don't blame fans at this point for checking out for the rest of the year. There's not a prospect I could say, hey, you got to tune in for this debut, or there is not a series I have circled. If you're going out to a series or a game at Kauffman Stadium, I hope you're going to Dollar Dog Night or some sick bobblehead, because that is the thing that I'll be looking forward to more than the on-field product at this point, Jeremy.
Yeah, I was really hoping they'd at least get a couple guys to be excited about to watch for the rest of the year. At this point, I'm just sitting here going, whenever you promote guys to AA, I'll watch some AA games. I'd love to, Sean Mernon does an amazing job calling games for Northwest Arkansas. So I'm really looking forward to listening to him call some games with some truly outstanding prospects. But, once again, a lot of these guys look good in high A, and Jaibel Gomez is getting some real pop from playing in the complex leagues. Until I see it in Double A, I just can't. I followed Chase Valo and the guy who had 50 home runs in A ball. Can't remember his name now. He was an outfielder. Sully Matias.
Oh, yeah.
I fell in love with all these guys, and I'm not doing that to myself anymore. Let me know when they get to Double A, and then I will fall in love with them. I mean, I'm already kind of in love with Kendry Churio, but I'm keeping my distance. I'm not diving in harder on that.
Smart move, Jeremy. All right, dude, you got a quick review for us tonight?
I will try to give you a quick one. I got to look up the name real quick. Why don't you go and
Okay.
then I'll go.
Yeah, I'll do mine real quick. So I will say my sister and brother can attest to this. I'm one of those folks drink coffee at any point of the day, and it was simply because before my ADHD meds, I felt like I needed to be constantly caffeinated to just keep moving and not get kind of locked into this spiral. And if you're a moving target, it's harder to hit. So I was drinking a lot of coffee to keep myself stimulated, but I started going on the ADHD meds. Those helped out a lot. And then coffee started, it would either wake me up a good bit or it would put me to sleep. And I didn't like the variable in that. So I started trying out some different things. I tried out this thing called G Fuel. I think I've reviewed it on the podcast before. I just wanted to talk about my favorite flavor from them. It is a grapefruit white peach. It is absolutely
Sounds good.
impossible to find on a consistent basis. I had like a monthly subscription set up starting back in May for it, and I just got my first subscription box last week. It's constantly sold out, but it does what I needed to do. I feel like I can, focus a little bit more while sitting down and not get like physical jitters or, like sometimes I would drink coffee or energy drinks and I would feel like my blood pressure rise or my heart racing a little bit. I don't get that with G Fuel, so I suggest trying it at least if you've been experiencing some of the things that I'm talking about. Jeremy, over to you.
So I watched last week, that time I got reincarnated as a slime, Scarlet Bond, which is the slime movie.
Okay.
And it was really just kind of like an extra long episode of the show. It's not particularly memorable. I don't find any particular episode of the show to be memorable. I just like the vibe of like they're always going to solve the problem. People aren't gonna die and we're not gonna be sad. Well, somebody dies in like the second half of the first season, which is like you've already established the vibe at that point, and then to do that, but then they go back off of that. So, it could happen. I've watched 2 seasons plus the ovas plus the movie. I know there's 2 more seasons I haven't gotten to yet, but I love the vibe of just like let's just chill and watch a leader who wants to do the best for his country build an empire instead of like trying to profit off of it. And every once in a while we'll have some cool pyrotechnics as he does super magic powers to fight people. And the movie was just more of that. The ending was especially dumb even by slime standards, but just like a character appears to die and then another character sacrifices themselves to bring that first character back to life. And then a
Jeez.
third character is like, actually, I have the power to just bring you back to life. I don't even have to sacrifice myself. And it's
Yeah.
just like, why did you act like anyone was going to die? We all knew no one was going to die.
Hmm.
Why? Why? And it was just kind of silly. But, again, this is the vibe of slime, which I enjoy. So that
Okay.
I enjoyed the movie. It's on Crunchyroll. If you've already got a subscription there, you can watch it. It's fine.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Jeremy. That is going to do it for today's episode of the Royals Rundown podcast. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. Always remember, if you're watching the Royals, if you pay for the streaming packages, you also get the minor league games. Some of those minor league games might be a little bit more merciful to watch right
Not
now than the
Omaha.
big league product. Not Omaha. Not Omaha. Tune in for a River Bandits game a time or two, huh? But
Such a cool name, too.
it
Like,
is.
River Bandits is my favorite team name in the organization.
And if you're close to Davenport, Iowa, I've heard great things about modern Woodman Park up there.
I watched a couple Quad Cities games on minor league baseball TV, and ooh, it looks nice. Right there on the river.
Yeah.
I love it. I would go
Heck
there.
yeah. They got the big old Ferris wheel out there. It looks
Yep.
awesome. So, but all that to say, take care of yourselves, y'all. We'll keep you updated on the Royals. We'll talk beyond the box score, or you can go get through the pain with other Royals fans at royalsreview.com. I'm Jacob Milham. They're Jeremy Greco. Thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, go Royals.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.